Good morning, everyone. This is Richard Martinez, Superintendent of Schools. Um, Again, it's been 1 month. Welcome back. I know that's kind of a long time ago, but every day seems like a new day. I think we all feel that. There's always changes, and I think the pandemic has brought that to us. We've had so much practice over the last 6, 7 months since March 13th on how things go and how the flexibilities keep on happening, the changes from the state, from the federal government, from our county of Los Angeles, from LACO, and we go with this. And I just want to commend the teachers because I believe what you've created is some form of normalcy during a time that our students are struggling with this. I think many of us as educators, as administrators, have had a difficult time with the changes. However, what I've seen in Pomona is this, and I said it day one, is resiliency. You know, I use the example of the weeble wobble. You know, we bounce forward, we bounce back, we don't stay down. And so I thank you for supporting your fellow colleagues. Thank you for supporting your parents through this. And many of you, what I've seen on weekends, after working hours, in spite of all the hard work and all the heavy lifting you're doing, you're helping out with community groups, with churches. You're helping feed those that can't eat. You're helping those that don't have shelter or clothing. Because I see you on social media, and I commend you for giving those extra hours away from your family to support others. And I know many of you have brought in your families to support those efforts. So again, the hours that you put in distance learning every day, I know it's definitely way beyond an 8-hour day. I have talked to many of you at hour 12, hour 13, at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evenings, and you're still at it, preparing for the next day, preparing for the next week. That goes, we notice that, we see that. So the Board of Education extends a big thank you and recognition for your good work. And here we go today. I think you're going to be hearing something as far as student engagement and how we're going to capture that. Again, something we learned more details about in the last 7 days. And we want to present that to you. Many of the things that we do, we receive days before, and the implementation is days later. So this is a lot different than other times, because in other times they come up with a new legislation, a new rule, and we get a year. We get 6 months. We sometimes get 2 years to plan for it. Because of the ever-changing times, we are finding ourselves needing to pivot almost on a daily basis. And I'm asking you for your patience. I've been asking for that since March 13th. Bear with us. This isn't something that Darren, Lelia, isn't something that Sandra is doing for the district office or the CFO. This isn't the union. If anything, we want everything to go back to normal. We want that new thing where, God, being in the classroom, having our 165 contacts at secondary, my 32 kids, my 24 kids, God, it'd be nice if we had that once again. And I believe that time's coming, folks. I believe, we may be 6 months out, a year out, but whatever the case, I'm asking you to just be flexible, taking care of yourself first and foremost, taking care of your families, and then taking care of your extended family at Pomona Unified School District. So again, we will work through this. We will get through this. This too will pass. And, I look at every event and every activity that we experience as human beings as preparation for the next event, for the next thing that's going to happen. You can say, Richard, it can't get any worse than this. I didn't think it could get any worse on March 13th. And then we have all these fires, and then we have social unrest in our country, around the world. So it is kind of worse than it was March 13th. But I've seen bad situations over my 59 years of living, and things did improve from some ugly that occurred beforehand. And I lived through the moratorium of back in the 70s over in East LA. And when I saw those buildings being burnt down, the rioting and all the social unrest then, and I'm thinking, gosh, this is ugly. Is this the way it's going to be when I'm older? And things have ebbed and flowed, and I like to believe that things have improved. But there's so much so much room for improvement when it comes to that. And we're working diligently to do that piece. Today, I'm asking you to focus on our kids, on capturing what they do and ensuring that our kids could advance. And again, thanks again for all you do. And I'm going to pass this to Darren because I could talk forever. You give me a microphone. So thank you, Darren, and thank you, team, for allowing me to open up. Again, stay healthy, folks. And if you need anything, feel free to write me. You could email me if there's anything that you recommend or suggest. Totally willing to hear that too. You can write me directly on email. Have a great day and a great week, and I wish you well. I'm going to be stepping out to another meeting right now and stepping back in here in about 25 minutes. So, Darren, it's all yours.
Hey, good morning, POSD, and thank you for joining us this morning. I just want to clarify something for those of you that may be too young to remember what a Weeble Wobble is. This is actually what it is. I wanted to clarify for everybody.
Thanks, Darren.
The other day, and I shared with him about Richard's beginning when he talked to us about resiliency, and I mentioned a Weeble Wobble, and they're like, "Dad, what's a Weeble Wobble?" And so, that's a Weeble Wobble. So in case you don't know, that's it. So, okay. So again, good morning. I want to echo the sentiments of Richard in the fact that we really appreciate all of your hard work. We know you guys are working hours and hours and hours. Take care of yourself. 2020 has thrown pretty much everything at us. And now, we're dealing with COVID-19. We're dealing with fires. We're dealing with unhealthy air conditions right now. But you know what? We're going to get through this, and we're all standing. We're working hard. We're there for each other. We're there for our families. And I want to commend you all for that resiliency and also for just taking care of each other. So the purpose of today's webinar is to address the daily participation and weekly engagement requirements of Senate Bill 98. Interpretation of this law has varied greatly around other districts, and we've been talking to other districts around us and seeing how they're implementing the Senate bill requirement as well. It is an overly detailed process. If you look at what the state provided as the process, it was very detailed and would have been very time consuming. So as a team, we've been working with central attendance, pupil and community resources, ed services, HR, informational technology, and our association, APT, to streamline this process of accounting for the daily instructional time and the weekly engagement. Today's training applies specifically to the teacher of record. We will follow up with directions for any itinerant programs such as music, PE, art, and also for RSP teachers that may be working with students in a push-in or pull-out model, and they are not the teacher of record. We'll be following up with some instructions for those groups as well. Principals are in the process of working with central attendance to, as they do annually, certify their instructional minutes, and this work ties directly to that work as well. Today's training will include a short video and a live demonstration of how the teacher of record will record the weekly engagement into Q, Zangle. And so in order for that, in order to allow for learning and practice, you will have some time today, and then also next Wednesday to kind of perfect this process. We're also going to be posting this video, this webinar, onto the Central Attendance website so that you can come back and access it if you need to reference it. We do know that this is going to be something new for you, but again, we did try to streamline this so that to make it as easy as possible for teachers in the classroom. Please use the Q&A feature on the webinar to ask any questions, and we will use those questions to develop a frequently asked question sheet, and we will also post those on the Central Attendance website. Questions about minimum instructional minutes will be addressed with principals and shared with you at a later date. Will happen very soon. This recording, again, the training will be available, and so make sure you reference it if you need to. And so without further ado, at this time, we're going to start our short video. Thank you.
Good morning, Pomona Unified School District teachers. The purpose of today's presentation is to share the weekly engagement and daily participation record-keeping requirements under Senate Bill 98 and how we will be implementing it within Pomona Unified. To provide a brief background, Senate Bill 98 is in effect for the 2020-2021 school year only. Under Senate Bill 98, attendance is still required for the purpose of compulsory education, such as tracking truancy, and to account for chronic absence rates for students missing 10% or more of the school year or not participating 60% of the school week. In addition to attendance, Senate Bill 98 also requires a teacher to certify weekly engagement records and daily participation of students to account for instructional minutes and student engagement and participation. In a typical year, instructional minutes are accounted for with a bell schedule and attendance because we know when kids are on campus during the bell schedule times. Then they're fulfilling the requirement for instructional minutes. However, under distance learning, which is where this applies to engagement records and participation records, we don't have the supervision of students. The instructional minutes are accounted for by measuring their engagement in both synchronous and asynchronous activities. The weekly engagement and daily participation record keeping must be compliant by September 1st of this school year. We understand that requires us to look back and that there is a very short turnaround. If we look at the implementation timeline, one of the first milestones after Senate Bill 98 came out was the state making available a template of what they deemed as compliant and meeting the record keeping requirements, or daily participation and weekly engagement records. It was important that we first had the template, which was viewed as compliant, to make sure that the record-keeping processes and procedures we put in place in our district were compliant with the expectations under Senate Bill 98. Fortunately, a few days later, Q was able to implement the engagement module that will upload a lot of the work compared to what the state template was asking our teachers to complete each day for each student. Once that became available, we immediately brought it to the Associated Pomona Teachers, Central Attendance, Pupil and Community Services to streamline processes, to be more efficient, and to ensure that we are compliant with our requirements under Senate Bill 98. We did have a chance to present the plan process and system with principals and other members of our administrative and leadership teams on September 8th. Today we are presenting the plan on how to get teachers started on completing the daily participation and weekly engagement record keeping process. Weekly engagement records are a little bit easier to complete after the fact, while the daily participation log is important to have it done contemporaneously, similar to attendance. Please note that teachers will be given time on September 9th and Wednesday, September 23rd to complete the weekly engagement logs for students back to September 1st. Complying with all these requirements under Senate Bill 98 will ensure that we are ready for our learning continuity and attendance plan, which must be approved by September 30th. In the next group of slides, we will show you how to access and enter both daily attendance and weekly engagement. Daily attendance and weekly engagement are submitted daily. Also, please note that the names and ID numbers in these examples are not real. Once you have logged in, select Class Attendance from the Attendance menu button. Take attendance as usual. Based on feedback from both elementary and secondary teachers, we have added an additional code you may use if students are late to or left early from your video conference, either on Zoom or Google Meet. As we discussed earlier in this presentation, in addition to the daily attendance, SB 98 requires that we certify weekly engagement. Union and district leaders worked with state auditors to determine the most effective, simplest method for maintaining class engagement records while remaining in compliance with SB 98. Therefore, rather than use these state templates, we will use Q, a platform teachers are already accessing daily to take attendance. To get to the weekly engagement screen, select the Class Engagement button located at the top right of the daily attendance screen. Teachers must certify the number of minutes of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. The minutes entered are what the teacher offered to students, regardless of whether a student attended your video conference, came late, left early, or completed any assigned work. This is not to track student minutes or progress on assignment, but simply to show what you as a teacher offered to your class that day. Again, teachers are only required to document the number of minutes offered in two areas: academic synchronous, academic asynchronous. Here are the steps to document the synchronous learning. First, select academic synchronous from the type in the engagement drop-down menu. Next, select the method for synchronous learning from the method drop-down menu. Video conference. This is our generic term for Zoom and/or Google Meet. You do not need to select anything under the Outcomes menu. For number of minutes, you will need to indicate the number of minutes you offered synchronous learning, video conferencing to your students, whether that is the same for all students or different for each cohort. Remember, this is the number of minutes that you scheduled or offered for your students, not the number of minutes each individual student attended. In the Notes section, you will need to indicate which subject or subjects were covered or taught during the video conference. You do not need to individually break each subject down by minutes. Just list the subjects in the notes. This will most likely be the same for all students, but may differ from cohort A to cohort B. If you want each column to list the same thing, first indicate your selection from the drop-down menu, then click the Mass Fill button. Once you have completed the field for each student, click Submit. By clicking Submit, you certify that this information is correct. This is your electronic signature, required by SB 98, certifying the weekly engagement minutes offered to each student. The synchronous engagement, along with the number of minutes, will appear under the student's name after you click Submit. Follow the same steps to document asynchronous learning. First, select Academic Asynchronous from the Type Engagement drop-down menu. Next, select the method for asynchronous learning from the Method drop-down menu, Assigned Work. This is work you assign to students through Google Classroom or some other platform. You do not need to select anything under the Outcomes menu. For number of minutes, you will need to indicate the number of minutes you offered asynchronous learning, independent work, to your students, whether that is the same for all students or different for each cohort. Remember, this is the number of minutes that you scheduled or offered for students, not the number of minutes each individual student attended. In the Notes section, you will need to indicate which subject or subjects were assigned for independent work. You do not need to individually break each subject down by minutes. Just list the subjects in the notes. This will most likely be the same for all students, but it may differ from cohort A to cohort B. If you want each column to list the same thing, first indicate your selection from the drop-down menu, then click the Mass Fill button. There should be a note detailing total minutes meeting minimum requirements. When both synchronous and asynchronous minutes are added together, they should at least reach or exceed the minimum number of minutes required by law. Thank you for attending this virtual training on SB 98.
Okay, so that's the completion of the video. And then at this time, we're going to turn the screen over to Patty Ibanez, and she's going to walk us through a live demonstration. We'll be able to go a little bit slower and walk you through the process for recording the weekly engagement. Patty?
Good morning, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. So what you're looking at right now is our training database. So all the names that are displayed here are not real. I am using one of the teachers at Diamond Ranch, their account. Thank you, Ken, for allowing me to use this. Now, typically when you log in on a typical day, you will go to menu, go to attendance and then class attendance. As the video is shared, you're going to notice that actually as of starting today, your attendance codes have been updated. You'll see the new codes that say present as video conference, present as tardy left and left early, which is brand new. You have your absent code, and then you have your asynchronous codes, which is phone/email communication or working on assignment. Now, if you have any students that are that were marked absent, but you've communicated with those families, keep in mind that you do need to go back. You have 5 days to go back and update it to phone, email communication. You do want to clear those absences, okay?
Hey, Patty, is there a way we can make this a little bit bigger?
Yes.
Maybe it's just my eyes, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, I have a small monitor, so let me go ahead and see if I can make it a little bigger. Is that a little better?
Yeah, keep one more time.
One more, let me go 100%.
Oh,
A little better, a little.
yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so let me go ahead and show one more time these attendance codes. You have your video conference, tardy left early, absent, phone/email communication, and working on assignment. As for synchronous, A for asynchronous. So that's a little bit of a shortcut for you to remember which one's which. So another thing about class attendance is that now that you've, recently there was a new update. If you have to, let's say for example, today's Wednesday, typically you might be assigning work for your students. You have the mass fill option, which will update all the attendance codes for the entire class. Okay, and if you need to just change one student, you can do it just manually for one student. Okay, and then you hit submit. So these codes are now recorded, and from within class attendance, you have the class engagement button on the top right corner. I'm going to click on that, and that allows me to switch over to the current class that I'm looking at. Now, if you're in the secondary level, secondary site with multiple classes, that you can click on the Find button and have access to any of your classes here. Okay. For primary teachers, you will only see your own class. So you will not have that Find option here. I'm going to click Cancel. So now that I'm in class engagement, you've got your name of your student, your grade, and you have your attendance groups too, so you can see if they're if you're using cohorts, if you're looking at cohort A and B. Now, what's great, I'm not sure if you're aware, but these headings are sortable. So if you click on it, I just clicked on the attendance group. Notice that it now brought me the B group here. Now, if I click on it again, I've got the A group. Now, if I don't want to see this, I actually wanted it to be in alpha order. I can click on the student heading, and now you'll see a mixture of A's and B's together. Now it's in alpha order. So these are extra tools that for you to be able to easily sort your kids. Now you can also, let's see, you can also sort it by attendance. So if you want to, I think I have one student that was absent around here. Yeah, there he is. Okay, attendance isn't sort. We'll have to look into that. Now, during the discussion, we were talking about the different methods of engagement. Listed below, you have your asynchronous and synchronous and other options available too. The wellness check and are available for the student engagement, which is more of an individual, more of a, let's say for example, your counselors are meeting with these students. They can keep track of these students based on their wellness check that they're doing on students. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and select asynchronous. Since today is Wednesday, you don't meet with your students for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and select asynchronous. The method, asynchronous is homework. So I'm going to go to assigned work. Outcome, I'm going to bypass this, but this is where I'm going to type in my minutes. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and use 60 minutes of minutes of asynchronous that was assigned to the students. And in the notes section, you want to enter what subject did you cover during for this assignment. So I'm going to say this is statistics. And I'm being very general here for this example. Now, since all the students got assigned to this assignment, I'm going to go ahead and use the mass fill, and it mass fills every single column. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit submit to finalize it. And right below each student's name, you're going to see a record for that record of engagement that you've just entered. Now you do need to enter an asynchronous and synchronous record. There should be a minimum of 2 records. I'm going to go ahead and enter the synchronous now. This is the time that I spent meeting with these students today. I'm going to go video conference. Minutes, I'm going to say another 60 minutes. Met live with them. And we covered more information about statistics here. And I'm going to go ahead and mass fill. Now, if you need to change something for one specific student, you can do that individually, even though you've mass filled all the items. So I'm going to say, for example, just these 2 students have to step out. Just an example. I'm going to change. I'm going to type in 30. And say percentages. Once you click on anything you add in this top field, you can actually go into these arrows and modify them. See, I'm not mass filling everybody, but I'm just picking a couple of students that are going to have these that are a little different from the other students.
Patty, I just want to clarify.
Yes.
If the student steps out, he does not need to change it. It's what the teacher offered. It's not what the student was there for. Some students may get more if there was a small group pulled or something like that, but the teacher does not need to go in and verify how many minutes each kid was in that synchronous video conference. And then in the notes, even statistics, it doesn't need to be that specific. Ken could just type math.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that, Erin. For this purpose, though, I just wanted to show that it is possible to use these options on the very top to be able to modify any individual records. Okay, and on the very far right, as you notice, my screen is pretty small. They've added the name of the students on the far right, so you know who you're actually targeting as you're entering this information. And once you're done, you can go ahead and click submit, and you are done. Also on the far right, you do have access to the class attendance button, which will take you back to the class attendance if you need to.
So a couple of questions, Patty, that have been coming up. We discussed the difference between high school and period record keeping for just a class period, as opposed to in elementary, you have the entire day. So for high school, the question that comes up is, how many minutes do I put in for each period? Well, if you look at your class schedule, they're all the periods are at least 80 minutes, and one period, I think, which is second period, is 90 minutes. So you'll account for all the minutes in that class period for each of your classes. So the total minutes for high school are 240. For my period 1, I'll be capturing the 2 entries that total up to 80 minutes. For period 2, it's 2 entries totaling up to 90 minutes. And period 3 is 2 entries totaling up to 80 minutes. Now, for elementary, we're also going to just do 2 entries. We do not have to break things up by subjects. Right there in that box where Erin mentioned that it could just say math, and Patty had put statistics, right there we would just list ELA, comma, math, comma, ELD. You would just list whatever subjects you taught that day, and you put them in there and mass fill that, so you don't have to type, several times. And you would, again, in elementary, only have 2 entries. You would have an asynchronous and a synchronous entry, and the total would add up to 240 if you're in 4th through 6th grade, First through third would be 230 minutes, and TKK would add up to a total of 180 minutes. Again, every teacher just needs to enter two entries for every class roster.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. And this is pretty much it about how to enter these records. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our help desk line, which is 23781. We're more than happy to help you technically if there's any questions that you have. Go ahead and stop sharing this screen.
Patty, thank you so much for walking us through that. Again, this webinar will be available on the Central Attendance website. I want to thank the panelists this morning for their participation and helping put this together. We know, guys, that was fast and furious. We know you're going to need some time to kind of absorb what you've heard this morning. We know you're going to have questions. You know, let's work together and work through this, and we'll support you in doing so. So again, we're going to provide some time today for you to kind of, this is live in your Q account right now for your classes. And so you can kind of take a look at it. You know, it may take you some time to learn the shortcuts and how to streamline this, but I think once you do this, you'll find that it's going to be, it'll move very quickly, but it is, again, a requirement of SB 98 that we track weekly engagement with all of our students, and that is the synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And so again, thank you for joining us this morning. And I'm going to ask the panel, you guys give a big wave to all of our teachers out there, and you guys have a great Wednesday, and we will talk to you later. Thank you. Alfonso, I didn't see you wave. Oh, he's got his, there he goes. All right, buddy. All right, buddy. Thanks, Alfonso. I want to give a big shout out also to Alfonso for helping us with the video and narrating. Phenomenal job, Alfonso. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I also need to give a shout out to Danielle Rashan, who really helped out in the research and getting with her colleagues and friends from all across other districts to find out, you know, what's going on and how can we make this better. And thank you to my bargaining team and my APT president.
And again, we will be looking at your questions in the chat, and we'll be getting answers to you for those questions very quickly. So thank you again.